Amtrak would face one of the hardest challenges it would ever face. It would have to find a way to replace its aging fleet of the iconic GG1s, the defective E60s which were problematic, and the constantly broken down Metroliners. It would have to introduce the iconic AEM7s and slowly introduce true high-speed rail to America, with the testing of the X2000 and the Intercity Express or ICE 1 series. For the next video, I'll be going down to a model railway convention in Sydney. It's named the Hills Model Railway Exhibition, and I'll be showcasing what I bought during that time and just showcase some of my favorite exhibitors that I really enjoyed a lot. So if you are interested in these sorts of videos, do give this video a like and subscribe, as it really does help out a lot. So, on to the video itself. In the previous episode in this series, we explored the development of the General Electric E60 and how it was destined to replace the much older GG1s, which at that point were already approaching 40 years old. Despite the good intentions of the freight-derived GE E60s, they had issues with derailment when traveling above 90 miles per hour. Due to this, Amtrak had to go to Plan B, which was to approach experienced European manufacturers who had built fast electric passenger locomotives from both the SNCF and the Swedish firm ABB would be approached, and both would test their locomotives on the NEC. From the testing, it was clear that the Swedish RC4 build would be the perfect base for a new American electric passenger locomotive, and that is where we start the AEM7 story. Off the bat, the AEM7 would be much smaller compared to its predecessors. It was nearly 30 foot shorter than the GG1 and 20 foot shorter than the GE E60. It would only be 51 feet long and weigh only 92 tons. It would also be incredibly light, also being 80 tons lighter than the GG1 and an incredible 122 tons lighter than the newly built E60s. Despite all of that, it would have more power than both. The AEM7 would push out 7,000 horsepower. It would be the smallest and lightest high horsepower locomotive in America. Since the AEM7 was designed to run on the Northeast Corridor, it had to be future-proofed in order to deal with the further expansion of the 25 kilovolt, 60 Hz electrified sections, and it would also have to deal with the older New Haven and the Pennsylvania Railroad electrification scheme of 11 kilovolts at 25 Hz. The AEM7 could do both with no trouble at all. Amtrak would actually order 30 locomotives initially for $77 million in total in 1977. EMD and ASA would win the contract to build the locomotives, and this order would be extended to now have 47 locomotives in total. ASA would be responsible for the electric equipment, while EMD would be responsible for building the body. The first locomotive, numbered 900, would be delivered in 1980 and would be extensively tested in Colorado at the Colorado Transportation Technology Center. Number 900 would cover 156,200 miles during testing. The AEM7 was incredibly stable at high speed, and the lightweightness would also reduce damage to the track. The first AEM7 would pull out of Washington Union Station on the Metroliner service towards New York started in May 9, 1980. By 1982, all 47 AEM7s would be in regular service. This allowed Amtrak to finally retire the GG1s and sell a majority of the GE E60s that had been troubling Amtrak for a while now. The AEM7's performance was fantastic to the point where Amtrak would order a further 7 more locomotives, bringing Amtrak's total to 54 locomotives. These locomotives allowed passengers to have a renewed confidence in Amtrak. Later, 29 out of the original 54 original Amtrak AM7s would be rebuilt starting in 1999. This was a full overhaul, replacing the original DC traction motors with AC traction motors, replacing all the old traction equipment, and even managing to double the amount of head-end power for the passenger cars. These rebuilt AEM7s would be named the AEM7s AC, AC standing for AC traction. The AEM7s wouldn't last forever though, and in 2010 a replacement would be ordered. This replacement locomotive would be the Siemens ACS 64 and would replace the entire AEM7 fleet. The ACS 64s would start entering service in early 2014 and would allow Amtrak to replace the AM7s in revenue service. The last AM7s to run on Amtrak were 942 and 946, where they made a special farewell run on June 18, 2016, traveling between Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia. This would end 38 years of the AM7 on Amtrak services. Mark and Scepter would retire their AM7s within the next 4 years of Amtrak finishing the book on the iconic AM7. Or is it? Currently 4 are in preservation, and 2 have been sent to the Transportation Technology Center in Colorado. However, in a change of fate, 2 have actually been purchased by Caltrains as locomotives to be used for the testing of the new electrification scheme in California. Following the failure of the Metroliner train sets and the Turboliners, Amtrak wanted to have new solutions to reintroducing high-speed rail back into America. ABB and the Swedish State Railway had developed a new high-speed train named the X2000 in 1990, and what had made it extra special was its tilting ability. It featured active tilting, and this allowed it to travel through curves much faster than conventional traffic, such as the AM7s with Amfleet coaches. The X2000 team was very keen to export this new train set to foreign markets and demonstrated the model around the world, including Australia. The X2000 would be able to travel up to 125 miles per hour, and these would be luxury trains with an onboard restaurant car. The Amtrak would trial the X2000 from 1992 to 1993 on the Northeast Corridor, just to see if it could suit Amtrak's needs. Before the X2000 arrived on American soil, it had to be modified before it could run on the Northeast Corridor. This included modifications for it to accept the Pennsylvania Railroad in-cab signaling system and a conversion from the Swedish line voltage from 15 kilovolts, 16.7 Hz to the Pennsylvania Railroad 11 kilovolts and 25 Hz, and also the 25 kilovolts and 60 Hz new scheme of electrification on the Northeast Corridor. The train would begin testing on the Northeast Corridor starting in October 1992. The goal of the testing was the speed, if the tilting was generally worth it, comfort, and operational reliability. Overall, the testing showed that the X2000 would be incredibly successful, and it would conclude testing on January 1993. Unlike a lot of testing schemes, the X2000 would enter a revenue service. It was important for Amtrak to have passengers give their opinions regarding high-speed rail and what they generally liked regarding the X2000s. This revenue service research would run from February 1993 to May 1993, and from August 1993 all the way to September 1993. It would serve on the older Metroliner schedule, traveling from New Haven all the way to Washington via New York City. Passengers were overall very happy with the train, showcasing some of the latest and greatest with train technology at the time. Despite that, Amtrak would reject buying the train set, however, would use it as a further teaching lesson towards their own high-speed train sets. It also highlighted the issues with the Northeast Corridor, especially when running high-speed trains. Issues with the quality of track, catenary, and harsh curves that could cause difficulties for high-speed running. This also meant that the Northeast Corridor would have to be fully upgraded in order for a high-speed train set to be fully used. This information would later be used by Amtrak to help them procure the new high-speed train set. Siemens would also attempt to sell the new German high-speed train named ICE. ICE was practically brand new and had only entered service on 2nd June 1991. These did lack the active tilting of the X2000, but were faster overall. An 8-car set from Bremerhaven would arrive in America. It would have to be modified, featuring modifications such as the replacement of the pantograph due to the height difference of American trains to European trains. The normal safety systems would have to be replaced by ATC, automatic train control, and ASC, automatic safety control. And it would also feature new knuckle couplers to allow the train set to be dragged around the USA and Canada. The Inner-City Express would tour cities in the USA and Canada. Like the X2000, it would also be tested on regular services, being used on the Metroliner service between New York and Washington instead. It would also be in its original livery, but instead of DB logos, it would now have Amtrak instead. During its test of being a regular Amtrak train, it would regularly travel up to 137 miles per hour during these trips. Siemens and AEG Westinghouse had hoped to sell 26 train sets for the Metroliner service, and if it had gone through, they would have been built at the EMD plants in the USA. Through these tests of the European high-speed trains, Amtrak learned what they needed to do in order to maximize their performance, highlighting certain parts of the Northeast Corridor that needed to be modernized and straightened in order to increase speeds for future train sets. They wanted a train set that could do 150 miles per hour, and it had to meet strict American impact standards. This future train set would be named Excella, and would be built by Bombardier and Alstom. However, that's a topic for a future video. Thank you for your continued support, and it's seriously appreciated. Now, I hope that I can always make content about, that you guys love and enjoy. And I do hope to see you at next week's video about the Model Railway Show. I love going to these shows, they're great fun. And I get to buy some cool random kit that no one's ever heard of, or buy that coach that, that's on a pretty good sale. So, very excited to do that. And I'll also be doing a video in the near future, probably in a fortnight time, about the iconic Empire Builder train that was run by the famous Great Northern Railroad. Relatedly, I have bought a Broadway Limited model. Some of you might know, it's on the Discord, the Factory Direct Broadway Limited E1. I'm very excited when that arrives. Now, I do mention that if you're interested in joining us on the Discord, I do have a link in the comment section that, you can come and talk about trains, maybe discuss modeling tips. That's the goal of it. So just come on down, there's no cost, no nothing, just be civil and all that, be polite, and we'll have a happy time. So if you're interested, there's a link, and I just want to say, thank you from me, my partner, and my pet bunny, Mr. Morris. And I just want to wish you a good night.